Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Circle That podcast. On today's episode, we go over some news in the film world, along with some hot takes that you may or may not like. Hope you enjoy, and thank you again for joining us. Welcome, everybody, to Scene 1, Take 2. I'm Devin Morano.
And I'm Josiah Vaughn.
And welcome back. Thank you all for listening. We got some interesting topics to go over today. The first thing we're going to go into is our quick take. So, Josiah, take it away.
So this week for our quick take, we have Beetlejuice. We just saw it in theaters a few days ago, and it was interesting. It was very interesting. So I had never seen Beetlejuice 1, the original 80s film, for those who don't know. And so in preparation for the film, I watched it that afternoon, and I really enjoyed it. It's wacky, it's goofy, it's like a comedy horror, but like really goofy, like not even scary, just weird, honestly. Kind of a fever dream. But it was really fun. It had the just really great 80s movie vibe. And then we went and saw the sequel that just came out in theaters, which had some of the original actors. It had Winona Ryder and Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice. And it was mid. I think it was mid.
Yeah, I agree. I think they waited too long for the sequel, as they do with every other 80s sequel that comes out, basically. I didn't like it very much. It seemed like they took 7 different scripts, in a sense, and put them all into one script, and they just couldn't decide which storyline to follow. So they were like, let's just do this and that and in this one and start this one. So it was very confusing at times. There were, again, some enjoyable moments, and I won't say there weren't. There were some moments where I definitely laughed and were like, oh, it's a good joke, or that's a good way to bring something about. So
yeah, for sure. Like there were good scenes and good characters, but they just didn't last very long. like some characters they set up, like there was this one, the antagonist, they set up the entire movie, and she like just died so easily at the very end. Yeah, spoiler, sorry, but it was just like they completely threw away her. It wasn't
even a spoiler. Like,
yeah, it's not even like that's it. Literally, she said like 2 lines in the whole film. Like
you just have to go and watch and see it. Yeah. It's just,
and then there was this other character they set up that was playing across from the daughter in the movie, and it was like a really interesting story. It was going places, and then it just like ended really abruptly, like middle of the film.
You'll have to see it. You'll go check it out for yourself.
Or don't. It's not worth it.
It's up to you.
Actually.
Or just wait till it comes out on rent. So that's up to you. But yeah, that's our quick take. So Josiah, what's going on in news recently?
So in film this week, I'm going to talk about some gear. We talked about last week how the Blackmagic Pixis is finally getting to people's hands. People are liking it. In addition to that, Blackmagic just released a Pixis monitor. It's a 5-inch touchscreen monitor, 1080p, 1500 nits HDR, and it's designed to control the Blackmagic cameras. It's designed for the Pixis because there's a USB port on the front of the Pixis, so you can plug it in just like a Red monitor and use it. But I think it works with other cameras too, I assume, like maybe the Ursas. I don't know about the Pockets, but probably the Ursas. Maybe the Cinema Camera 6K. And honestly, that combined with the Pixis is like the perfect Red alternative, I think, for basically half the price, and it's only $300 for like a touchscreen monitor. In addition to that, Blackmagic RAW, again with the Blackmagic stuff, is coming to the Sony FX6 and FX9. So Sony has licensed Blackmagic RAW to put in their cameras. This seems to be a trend because Lumix also did that like a year or 2 ago with their S5 2X. So yeah, Blackmagic RAW is just going into other cameras, which is pretty sick. And then lastly, Sirui, which is known for making anamorphic lenses on the budget, just announced their SQ75 and SQ100 tripods. So they're like competitors to the professional cine tripods. Like with fluid heads, they've got like 7 points of adjustment for counterbalance. They can counterbalance any camera from 0 kilograms up to 10, which is actually really useful because a lot of tripods require a certain minimum weight to work, but these go all the way down to super light cameras, which is nice. But yeah, so that should be interesting to see if they're actually worth it. The 75, which is a 7.5 millimeter bowl, starts at $400. They haven't released price for the SQ100, which is a 100 millimeter bowl, but it looks really interesting. It's one stage, but just like the Manfrotto tripods, like the spreaders can change size, so you can still put the camera down really low, but you only have like 1 point of adjustment, which should be fast to set things up really quickly.
Yeah, that should be nice. And in other news, everybody should be knowing that the new James Gunn Superman movie is actually in production right now, but a new headline states that the new Superman actor, David Cornsweet, I think that's how you say his name. His last name's a little confusing. Cornsweet, however you say that, said that he actually didn't feel great when he was getting in the bulk for Superman because he went from around 200 pounds to 230 pounds. So he put on 30 pounds of bulk, and he said that it was too fast of a change for him, that his body couldn't react in the proper way it was supposed to a bulk. And he went from a size large pants to a size 2X large pants.
Oh, dang.
So he bulked up very much, but he, in the interview that he gave, he stated that it just was a little bit of a too fast of a bulk for him, and his body wasn't reacting to it. So he got actually really sick before they started production because they were going too fast for him. But he's okay now, and he does state that he's very happy playing Superman, but he just wishes his transition to becoming Superman was a little bit of a gradual change instead of a kind of a rush change.
I always find that interesting how in films that require a certain type of physique, like even films that require like someone to be overweight or someone to be super fit, that they'll find actors that are not that way and then try to turn them into that.
Yeah.
Instead of just finding actors that are already ripped. You know what I'm saying?
It's such a crazy thing to see because he is in the new Twisters movie. I forgot the exact name of his character, but he helps the main character at first. And then if you haven't seen it, you have to go watch it. But he's in that movie, and he's a fit guy in the movie, but he doesn't look like a Superman type build. So I could definitely see how him changing his look from that to becoming Superman was definitely a very fast paced change. But go check out Twisters if you haven't seen it yet.
Cool. Yeah, I need to check out Twisters. Every time I tell people I haven't seen Twisters, they're like, "What? It's so good." Especially,
Twisters?
It's like a great follow-up to Twister, and I'm like, "What's Twister?" And they're like, "You haven't seen Twister?"
You haven't seen Twister?
Exactly. I haven't seen any of the Twister franchise. I did not.
We're
know
gonna
that
get
was
you
a
on a bunch of
franchise.
80s movies. You got an 80 movies.
Oh, Twister's an
binge.
80s movie? I didn't know that.
Twisters is an 80s movie.
Oh.
I think. I could totally
Twister,
be wrong.
you mean?
I mean Twister. Yes.
Interesting.
Twister came out in JK. It's not an 80s movie. It's a 90s movie. I'm sorry, buddy. It came out in 1996.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. Well, for this episode, we're going to be going over hot takes that me and Devin have. And when Devin said he wanted to do a hot take episode, I was like, do we have enough good hot takes? And then he told me one of them.
Yeah.
And I lost it.
Well, we can't
So
start
we
out
won't
with that
start
one.
with that one. We'll start with a chill one.
one.
I have a more chill hot take, which may not be that much of a hot take. But my first hot take is that you cannot trust the tomato meter. And for proof, I only need to give you one thing.
Oh, one.
And it's that if you go to Rotten Tomatoes, Star Wars, The Last Jedi, Star Wars 8, the worst movie, Star Wars movie by far, maybe the worst movie ever made, the tomato meter is 91.
A 91
of The Last Jedi.
Of The Last Jedi.
The popcorn meter, which is the audience ratings, is 41%. So basically, all the critics of Rotten Tomatoes are fake, and they basically just like review movies based on whatever the corporate Hollywood overlords want to be successful and not successful, is my opinion, because it never matches what the movie is. Like generally, if I see like a low tomato meter score, like there's a critic score, then I'm like interested in seeing the movie. Now, if they're like both low or both high, then that's a good indication. But anytime there's like an upset, I usually just go on the popcorn meter because it's just going to be more accurate. So maybe that's not that much of a hot take, but I hear people go like, this movie was so good, it got this much on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm like, that means nothing. But that's what I think.
Yeah, I can agree. There are some things definitely on Rotten Tomatoes that you might go into and you're like, that was actually a really good movie, and then you look at like the score and they gave it a 40, and you're like, who's reacting to this thing? But I can see that.
Well, with the Star Wars thing specifically too, it's like when the sequels were being made, it was so very much like it was being made by people who didn't actually like Star Wars, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and so a huge amount of like the publicity around those movies just made no sense to actual Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
So that may be part of it in that particular case.
I don't like the newer Star Wars films.
I don't either.
I think they just
Coldest take
rushed
ever.
everything, and it just felt unnatural. Like literally, they took Luke's story and gave it to Rey,
Copy paste.
and it was a copy
With
and
a
paste
gender
story.
swap.
Yeah, and they ran the ball with it, which like is can be good in a sense, but the way they did it was just I felt
Yeah.
like a rushed approach.
But that's not a hot take because literally I don't know anyone.
Yeah, I
who
don't know
likes the
anybody
sequels.
that likes those movies. So okay, so Josiah, are you ready for people to turn off this podcast of
Yes,
my
destroy
take?
our viewer base right now with this take.
So yes, I'm in film school. Yes, I'm not saying this isn't a good movie. I just particularly don't like it at all. I do not like any of the Lord of the Rings movies. I think they are very overrated, and the the post production, like everything I've seen is good, but like I don't know, I just don't enjoy it. I think they're too
You've
long.
watched them, right?
I have watched
All
them.
three Lord of the Rings.
All three.
Have you
yes.
watched The Hobbit?
I have not watched The Hobbit.
You might like The Hobbit. Lord of the Rings is definitely better, but you might like The Hobbit.
I don't know.
Why? But like, do you like this? Have you read the books?
No.
Okay. Do you just not like the story or the performances? Like, what about them?
I just don't like the story. I don't find it
Just don't find it
interesting in a
interesting.
sense. Like
That's crazy.
I get like everybody's like, oh, it's so good, and like it's like most people's Star Wars in a sense, like in a different way. Or like I also don't like Harry Potter.
Whoa.
So everybody's
That's
just gonna come
another-
after me. I would much rather watch Star Wars or like 80s movies instead of Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. But that's just my take. And
I mean, I love Lord of the Rings. Lots of people like Lord of the Rings. I think one of the reasons why it's so universally liked is because it, like the story, because Tolkien's story is like the ultimate story of humanity. Good versus evil, but like on a very large scale. But it's one of those rare films that has the ability to do something extremely large scale, yet still have very, very deep and intimate character development. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
A lot of movies like Marvel does large scale stuff, but the character development is like, at least in most of it, is like
it's terrible.
it's not very deep at all. And then you'll have movies that have really good character development, but they're very small scale movies. And so I feel like that was a combination. But
To
yeah.
me, my Lord of the Rings is like The Godfather 1, 2, and 3.
I've not seen The Godfather.
See, okay.
I need to watch The Godfather.
You need to watch The Godfather.
We should show you The Hobbit sometime.
Even though
I like The
Godfather
Hobbit.
3 is not the best, but 1 and 2 are phenomenal. So that's my take, is that Lord of the Rings, to me, and this all of you are going to hate me in the comments and say, Devin, just never speak again. They're just not good movies to me, okay? I'm going to say it. I'm going to leave it there. We all have our opinions, and you might think that's not right, but that's my opinion. So
Gotta fix my freaking microphone.
So keeping on the Lord of the Rings realm, Josiah, what's up with this Rings of Power show?
Okay, yeah, Rings of Power. This is a show that everyone I've talked to hates. When I first saw it coming out, when it was first announced that Amazon was making a Lord of the Rings show, I was like, wow, the first Lord of the Rings content in like years. This is crazy. A lot of people don't like The Hobbit. I like a lot of The Hobbit. It is rough in some places, but I don't know. I do like it, and so I was hopeful. When I saw stuff coming out about Rings of Power, I was like, this looks kind of interesting, but also kind of weird, so I'm suspicious now. And then I watched like the first episode, and I was like, dang, this is like lame and annoying. But my family was into it, so I was like, okay, I'll watch it with them. And I watched the first season with them. And by the end of it, I was like, yo, low-key, kind of awesome. Then I just kind of forgot about it. And then when season 2 was coming out, I rewatched it with my sister, and I was reminded at how much I like it. But I know everyone really doesn't like it. And I think part of the original shock factor with people, I think, was that they were doing a lot of new things, like showing new parts of Middle Earth. For people who don't know, it's takes place like before Lord of the Rings and before The Hobbit. It's like really, really old in Middle Earth. So they're showing a lot of like origins of how certain people groups came to be and stuff like that. It's kind of based off the Silmarillion. And so it introduced a lot of new things, but a lot of people that were like really into Lord of the Rings and really into Silmarillion and the books and stuff were like, this isn't accurate to the canon and stuff like that. And I get that. But at the same time, I kind of enjoyed it. I think, though, specifically, as I've watched season 2, which season 2 is almost done, the last episode's about to come out. I think the way that this show approaches the battle of like temptation and like dealing with the devil, basically, because there's like Sauron's a character in it, and we see he becomes much more of like a real character than Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And I think they did a really amazing job of like representing what it would feel like to have a conversation with the devil, basically, which I thought was really interesting. But I know a lot of people just hate it for some reason, but I really like it.
I have no take on this because, as mentioned, I don't like Lord of the Rings, so I'm not going to watch Rings of Power.
It is the most expensive show ever made. It surpassed Game of Thrones. I think it's like $1 billion a season or something like that.
That's insane.
It's like every episode has the budget of like a Marvel movie.
And
it's actually insane. And it looks like just from the production design standpoint.
And everybody just thinks it's mid.
Yeah. Isn't that sad?
So you're pouring all this money into it.
But here's the thing, though. They're making a season 2. Like, it was extremely successful. Lots of people watched it. They made money off of it.
Yeah.
But I think it's more the very vocal Lord of the Rings fans were mad about it. But I think your average viewer...
like the real fans.
The real fans don't like it.
In-depth fans.
But I think the average person was like, this is entertaining, you know?
Okay.
Like, I think people that watched Game of Thrones, that audience, I think they're enjoying it.
Okay.
But I think people that are, like, really into Lord of the Rings are like, this isn't Lord of the Rings anymore.
Oh, okay.
And to be fair, like there's definitely ground like that. There's definitely some parts where I'm like, that makes no sense. Like in season 2, they've been doing this weird thing where they're like making orcs more of a like sympathetic like people group. Mm-hmm. Like they're showing them like having orc husbands with their orc wives and like their orc little babies that they're worried about. And it's just like, what the frick, dude? Orcs are like gross creatures that don't have emotions. Like but the weird part is that in the same episode they'll have an orc show doing that, but then they'll have an orc just like freaking out in the battlefield, just being an absolute monster, and it makes no sense. So weird stuff like that doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. But I think like some of the other character development, like some of the new people groups they've introduced and some of the leaders in those people groups, I think are really, really interesting and well developed. There was episode 7, which I just watched last night, had a lot. I need to read you some of these quotes. They had some of the best one-liners.
So are people just being too nitpicky about the show?
I think yes. I think they're kind of missing the forest for the trees. They're focusing on these like little canon details and not focusing on like the point of it.
Okay.
Because the whole point of it is Sauron's rise to power. Sauron's who's like, you know, the main bad guy, like the devil, basically, how he rises to power in Middle Earth. And he's like super deceptive, and he basically gets in people's heads and messes with their heads.
Right.
He plays like the long game, and there's these moments where like the characters finally realize that they've been deceived, but it's too late. And I don't know, there's some like really good deep stuff talking about it. But I'm trying to find. Here we go. So these are some quotes that I pulled last night from an episode because it was so good I had to write it down. I'll just pick one of them. Here we go. I would rather die with a heart that is whole than live with one that is broken by cowardice. So it's got some good one-liners.
Yeah, that's a good line.
So it's got some good script writing. But then they'll have like, again, an orc baby that you're supposed to be sympathetic for, and it's like, what is happening? So it's, I don't know.
Maybe they're trying too much. They're trying too hard with this budget that they have.
Another thing in season 2, they're throwing away some characters. They had this one elf character who was like, he was like a lower level elf character, but we were following him all of season 1. And at the beginning of season 2, they killed his love interest. And he lost all his friends.
Wow.
And I think he just died in this last episode. I don't know. I couldn't tell because they didn't show like whether he actually died or not, but it looks like he died. And it was like so anticlimactic. I don't know. They built him up and then didn't do anything with him. So there's weird stuff like that. But the main characters, like Galadriel is the main protagonist. Like her development is really good. Some of the other elves' development is really good. The dwarfs and Elrond and stuff like that. Like there's some good stuff.
That reminds me of like, do you remember in Stranger Things season 3 with Dusty's girlfriend that they built up like the entire season, and then she was in like the last episode, and she just never showed up in the next season. I think they mentioned her like once, and it's just like, okay, you have the audience building up on this one character for a whole season, and you introduce her in the, I think she was in the final, or maybe she was definitely in the final, and then maybe one other one. You introduce her, she actually does has like a great help in the episode to defeat the boss in that. And then she just never shows up again.
Yeah. And some of that I feel like must be like with actors, like if they can't get an actor for the next season or something like that.
Possibly.
Because I think that was what it was for, they also in season 2 recasted one of the main bad guys, which it was a horrible recast in my opinion. But the guy literally from the first season just said he wasn't interested in being involved anymore. I don't know if that's because like, he said he had a great time with the show, but I don't know if he just saw the bad publicity and wasn't interested, so they had to recast it. That's the problem with shows, is that like you kind of have to get your main cast committed for a long haul to really do something. Because if they pull out, then it's like, what?
The producers maybe not wanted him, and they were like,
I don't think so because I don't know why they would like he was really good for the role and everyone really liked him. So
I don't know.
And when I looked it up, it seemed like he was just like, yeah, I just want to do something different with my career.
Interesting.
So I don't know.
All right, so we got one more take, and I think we both agree on this take.
Yeah, this is a good take.
Many people that I have talked to actually do not like the movie The Fall Guy. We both like the movie The Fall Guy because I think it's because we're both in film school and that film heavily pays homage to films and like the behind the scenes of film. But we both like it. We think it's great. And from what I've heard from many other sources, they don't like it. I think the rom-com takes them out in a sense.
Yeah, I think people take it too seriously because I don't think it's meant to be taken super seriously. It's a very meta film.
Yeah, it's definitely not
like,
supposed to be taken serious.
Exactly. And so I think people that are like saying like, oh, the character development isn't paced right and like all this stuff. It's like, bro, it's not about that. Like it's about it's a love letter to filmmakers, specifically stuntmen.
Yeah.
And it's a classic underdog story.
Right.
And the ending, I say that if there's a part I don't like the last 20 minutes, I think gets a little long. There's a lot of like stunt gags and stuff that I'm probably like, okay, this is like not really pushing the story forward anymore. But for the most part, it's a really good movie. And yeah, I think people are just getting too nitpicky. And also, I will say though, when we watched it, we had just come off of the feature film that we worked on in our film school. Mm-hmm. And it was a very difficult set to work on. And going to the theater after that and just seeing like a bunch of, because throughout the film, it's like a movie within a movie. They're making a movie in the movie. And there were so many like funny film set jokes that was just so vindicating to laugh at. So I think part of that is why it was like an instant win for us.
I would agree. I also agree that people are taking it too serious. Like you guys mentioned, it's a thank you letter to filmmakers, but also stunt people. Especially, it's a very much of a thank you people to stunt people because they go very unnoticed and at times overseen by the main actor, which is kind of their job. Like they're supposed to go unnoticed because they're the stunt actor, so they're doing the stunts for the main actor. But at the same time, like it's just an enjoyable movie. Like you shouldn't go in taking everything serious with it. You should go in saying, okay, this is a movie that does have comedy, that does have romance, but at the same time it's not supposed to be something that it more is. Like it's not going to lead to more other films.
And
it's just one film.
The dialogue is written really well. Like the funny scenes are paced really well, and some even like the romantic conversations that go on for a while are like paced really, really well.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It's like just a sweet, fun love story. It's Ryan Gosling. Can't go wrong with that.
So what I would say is with that is, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. And in the comments, let us know what you think. Also, in the comments, if you have a hot take, let us know it. And let us know if you agree with our hot takes, disagree with our hot takes, and maybe we'll pick one out for the next episode.
All right, next, let's go into Rewind to wrap up this episode. So I'll go first.
Yeah, you go first.
For those that don't know, Rewind is when we pick an old movie by its title, and the other person has to guess what it's about. So Devin, your movie is The Omega Man.
Okay.
It came out in 1971.
Okay, you got the timer ready for me?
Oh yeah.
We have a minute and a half to guess what the film is about. And it's called The Omega Man from 1971. All right, so The Omega Man. I'm going to use my hint. Give me a hint.
Your hint is vaccine.
Vaccine.
I just got us banned from all platforms by saying
Vaccine.
that word, but that is your hint.
Is my hint. Okay.
Probably not a very good hint.
Okay, so
it's a good hint.
This is my guess. This movie is about a guy that gets a vaccine in him or some like test run on him, and it turns him not into a monster, but into like this hero of a sense. And then the government or whatever organization put this in him probably wants to chase him down and get him back so that they can run more tests on him. That's my guess.
That is actually a really solid guess. So you were close. So he was indeed experimented on by the government with the vaccine. The main character is Dr. Robert Neville, but he's actually the only survivor of an apocalyptic war.
Oh, wow.
With the exception of a few hundred deformed nocturnal people who are also homicidal maniacs.
Okay.
So not zombies, but they're like smart.
Okay.
And these people, these survivors of this apocalypse, they blame science and technology for their condition. Mm-hmm. And they see Neville as the last symbol of science. Therefore, he must die. So the film is about Neville using everything at his disposal in an attempt to survive. So, yeah, post-apocalyptic guy gets a vaccine, which is apparently what allows him to survive this war. but that also puts a target on his back, and he has to survive.
All right.
Yeah, Mega Man. I was looking up movies from the 70s, and all 70s movies are like really dark. I don't know
All
why.
right. All right. Are you ready for yours?
I'm so ready.
Okay. So your film is called Hercules in New York.
Hercules in New York. When did it come out?
It came out in 1969.
Okay, what's my hint?
Your hint is...
You don't have a hint for me, do you?
No, I have a hint. My hint is take Hercules that you know, and
Haven't seen Hercules.
you haven't seen Hercules.
No.
Okay, so this hint is going to help you. Here's your hint. Sports is your hint.
Sports. Okay, I'm gonna guess Hercules in New York is about. Since I haven't seen the original Hercules, so I have no idea what this. I don't know if it's connected at all. I'm gonna say it's not connected.
Okay.
I think this is a movie about a wrestler from a rural town who goes to New York, and he, back in his hometown, because there wasn't that many people, he was like always winning. But in New York, he has a lot more competition, and so it's a lot harder for him to
Okay,
win.
so that's your guess.
That's my guess.
So a wrestler
A wrestler
who has no competition,
And
but
then
he goes to New York to get
yes.
competition.
Yes.
That's actually a solid guess, but it's not quite about what the
So
film
what's
is
it about?
So it's about Hercules, like the real life Hercules, and Zeus throws him down to earth. And Hercules,
I love how you said the
travels-
real life Hercules as if Hercules is
I know,
real.
Hercules gets like thrown down to earth from Zeus, who's his father, and Hercules stumbles upon like man is like trying to figure his life out. So he goes to New York, actually becomes a professional wrestler in New York.
He is a wrestler?
So he is a
Let's
wrestler.
go.
He becomes a professional wrestler, but he gets mixed up with gang members in New York and has to fight off the gang.
That sounds like a great movie. When did this come out again?
1969. And it was
69, okay.
It was Arnold Schwarzenegger's first ever film.
Oh, it was Arnold
It was
Schwarzenegger.
it was his film debut.
Interesting. Wow. Well, I had the wrestling thing. That was. Wait, but like so. Okay, so he's a Greek god,
He's a Greek god.
but he's worried about the mob. Like,
I don't know
does he have
everything.
powers?
From what I read, it just says that he gets mixed up with the mob.
So
and
it's
he
like
has to fight
Thor,
them.
but Thor makes sense because Thor loses his powers when he goes to Earth. So
I don't
wonder
think
if this guy loses
I don't
his
think
powers.
Hercules loses his powers.
Interesting. So it's like the opposite of what I said. It's like he's literally like destroying everyone because
I
he has
guess. I mean, I'd have to
superpowers.
watch the movie. I've never seen it.
Interesting. Hercules in New York.
Hercules in New York. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and share it with everybody, and leave a comment. Do you have a poll for the fans today, Josiah?
Yeah, I think the poll should be, which is worse, the Fall Guy or Rings of Power?
Okay.
I think that's the question.
So which is worse, the Fall Guy or Rings of Power? So go ahead, let us know what you think, and we'll see you on the next episode.
See you.